Good morning, if anybody can hear me yet. It is a lovely day here in East Tennessee. Hope it is where you're at. Good morning, Jason. I just saw you in Epcot. I hope you're well today. Did you guys get any nasty weather yesterday? I don't. I don't remember if that big front that moved across the country. I don't remember if it got down your far enough down to get you guys or not. I was speaking to T-Town Mary Ellen a while ago in the chat. She said um, wherever she lives in Oklahoma, they had tornado warnings going off all night long. Makes for a pretty fitful night of sleep, I'd say. Oh, that's good, Jason. Good morning, Miss Tina McNeil. No arc? You mean no mark? No arc either. Good morning, Carol. No, Mark's not going to be here today. Now, how did you pick up on that so quickly? Or did I say that already? Mark is actually not going to be here today. He is out mending fences. He had a they had a well, this happens every year pretty much. He's trying to build something new. It won't, but he has a water gap. A place where his fence crosses the river, and every time it floods, it tends to wash part of it out, and then the horses either get out or the other guy's cattle get in, or Mark ends up trying to chase the horses down the road. They end up somebody else's pasture. That thought crossed my mind too, Carol, but I was pretty sure that wasn't what she meant. But since I've been talking about animals, though, it could be an ark, 2x2 and all that stuff. Good morning, Rhonda. Good to see you this morning. Are you still on to do the live stream in a little while, Rhonda? No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I figured you were busy. Cool. So everybody remember after the show today, I'll put Rhonda, you're welcome to put the link in the chat. You're a mod, you can do that. Put the link in the chat, and they're going to do a show live stream today up from Anchorage, Alaska, on the I guess the ceremonial start of the Iditarod, if I'm not mistaken, at 1:30 Eastern. Okay. I was planning on having it on, so I'm looking forward to it. Since you said that, let me go back and check my. Woo! Um. Looks like you already got your rocks. What are you building, Rhonda? Their opening ceremonies are 10 today. They're 10 their time, and the actual race starts tomorrow. I didn't think the race was actually. I thought this was a, like I said, ceremonial today. So shed, cool. Good morning, John. Welcome in. Thank you, Tina. And Chuck. If Chuck's in the house, did I miss Chuck? Cool. Oh, he's already down for a nap. Okay. I actually slept pretty good last night for a change, so probably didn't get enough sleep, but I still slept pretty good. Oh yeah, you're going to a hockey game. Wow, they're having to truck in snow. Hmm. I never thought they'd be trucking snow into Anchorage, Alaska in first week of March. I'm sure I've said this before, but Alaska's always had a I've always had a soft spot for Alaska in some way, I guess in some ways. Well, that's probably true. That's probably true, Ron. That makes sense. I think I have heard them doing that actually because of and then for the teams to slide off on or get started from. I did put together a show, and what I think I'm going to do is do it next week. Since I wasn't sure, I went ahead and just finished putting together some stuff I already had started. But I've got it put together, so I'm going to do it next week and talk about a little bit of the history of the Iditarod and you know where it's at, where it's going, and some of that kind of stuff. Oh, really? So you can buy into it and buy it. I wonder if they do live feeds from any of the mushers if they carry cameras on their sleds. I hadn't looked into that. Yeah, Tina, I'd like to do that. Brenda and I've talked about that because you know we've talked about going on cruises, and we've never cared that much about. Well, she would. She would probably like to go to the islands, and I would do that, but I've always wanted to go up there and hopefully see whales and that sort of thing. I'd like to do an Alaskan cruise. Friend of mine, no, friend of mine, gentleman I worked with years ago, um, and maybe somebody I know even more recently. Maybe you guys did this. He did the Alaskan cruise slash train trip, and I think they got on board a ship like in Vancouver and went up the intercoastal waterway or along the coast there, and then got off at Stewart maybe, and got on a train and went to Anchorage or I think Anchorage. I started to say Juneau, but I think anyway they went to in they took a train to the inland part of Canada or Alaska, and they enjoyed that a lot. I'd like to do that too. Well, let's just see about this insider thing here. I'm gonna put that over. I got two screens here. I can cover one up. I think I got two levels. That's all. I was not. Well, they have a free site, a $45 site, and a $55 site. Oh, well, and a $19 site. The $19 one is unlimited on-demand streaming. Well, that was in 20. No, until June 20. Okay, so that was for sort of an annual thing. It started in 2025, and that one you have to renew it in 2026 in June at the end of June. So after that, I did a rod. The free one can get you a free user account, enjoy all the excitement of the race, access to videos not available to unregistered users, like race documentaries, articles, and more. Registered users also get to choose a favorite musher to track and get email alerts based on their activity. That'd be kind of fun too. That'd be a fun thing to do with school kids. Uh, those of you who teach school, I know at least one of you does. You have each kid have a for that in their free account. Each kid have a pick a musher and then maybe write up the report on their trip for the Iditarod. That'd be kind of fun. And you can get Insider Ultimate video and GPS. That'd be a lot of fun. And then you get one more that's got GPS video and documentaries. Everything that the other one had plus more. Highlights, race broadcast, live trail cams, live checkpoint cams, 24-hour coverage, race GPS, enhanced live analysis. Well, that'd be interesting. I might have to check into that. I don't know if my wife's not in here, is she? She'd kill me if I signed up for something else. I may have to look into that though. That would be that would be. Yeah, don't you think, Tina? Oh, I know. I've wanted to teach. I do. I'd like to. I keep thinking, trying to do something like that. That would be a lot of fun. I think that to me that would be if I was a kid, a school age kid. Of course, now I was different. I'll agree. I'll admit, but that would be an interesting assignment. Have a musher and follow that musher and be responsible, for writing up a report. Maybe since it lasts a couple of weeks, might do two short reports. Well, I get that. How many pounds of rocks did that buy you, Rhonda, for $200 in North Georgia or Central Georgia? Or I think you're still in Georgia. My wife would probably tell you that if I could get the rocks out of my head, you could have them for free. Yeah, it'd be a reach. It'd be. I agree, Carol. It might be a stretch for kindergartners to do that, but other kids, a little bit older, it would be a lot of fun. Yep, Miss Rhonda is building a, pardon the expression, but a she shed studio or outside space or some sort. That's what this This building was before we bought this house. This building was here, and it was built as a outdoor studio for the lady that lived here before. I'm trying to think if she built the house too, or I think the house was already here and she added this. But Brenda's talked about that in the past. Kelly's doing that too, Rhonda. Our daughter Kelly that does the how should I put this? The I don't know how to put it. The art that's got all the dead critters in it. Her husband's building her an outside work shed to do all of her artwork in and keep track of stuff. So they're working on it right now, I think. But he does that kind of work, so that helps. Good morning, Maple Bacon. Good to see you, buddy. I was told that we were going to have a discussion with you about donuts. I ran into Dave of Dave's Disney. Dave's. Is it Dave's Disney Dreams? I guess I get them mixed up sometimes. And he said that, he'd been showing up and the donuts were always gone when he got here. So, that'd be a good idea, Carol. Yeah, see, that's what he was discussing. The fact that somebody always seemed to eat them before he got here. Tina, you think you knew about that, didn't you? That she does art with like critter parts and things. I will post her link. You can look at her stuff on YouTube. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. And she just did a show. She's getting ready to do another one. In fact, it may be. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend. But here's her link if anybody wants to see. And her little business is called Undying Creations with a K instead of a C. And I'm back up here. I'm missing chat. Oh, I missed Chris. Oh, hey, Chris. Good morning. Didn't see you come in. There's some things I can't do in the house because it does particles or toxic smell. Ooh. So they will be done in the shed or outside of it. That's a good idea. John, I hope you get to go see a good hockey game. As I hate to admit it, I watched a good one late last night. I think it was yesterday. Dallas and the Avalanche, Colorado. It was a tight game, and I went into overtime, and I don't know how it ended yet. So if anybody saw it, don't tell me. I was going to watch the overtime. Morning, Adventures by Dave. D. Excuse me. But how are you, Dave? I had to put in a new hot water tank yesterday. We woke up Wednesday morning and had cold showers. Ooh. So you really did wake up. That's never fun. Oh, did you look at her site, Tina? Yeah, she's got some gorgeous. I mean, she really does have some gorgeous stuff, and she's done real well on the I don't know what you call it, alternative art scene that she's been going to. And these things tend to be by invite only, and she's getting invitations now to attend several. Rhonda said she did that about a month ago, but it was because I woke up. Oh, the heater, water heater, in the middle of the night, two soaking wet rugs in my bathroom. Oh no. Oh man, busted water heater or leaking water heaters never fun. You don't hear about this much anymore, but I can remember a couple of different times when I was growing up when the water heaters exploded and kind of became a short range ballistic missile or something. They blew like one end of the house off, or they came out through. Pressure got so high they popped and went out through the ceiling. I don't know if that was because they weren't building pressure sensors right for water heaters back then, or if that was just a fluke or somebody had been hot wiring the water heaters and had them set wrong. Hang with me a minute, guys. I've gotta do something. Stand by one. I'm gonna cut myself off. Be right back. Okay, I was looking for some ointment. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So he said his electric elements went out and our hot water heater wasn't a leak, but it was 22 years old. Yeah, I figured to put it in myself. Paid $250 for the new one. Cost under 1,000. Wow, those things. Yeah, they have. You got electric. If you had elements, I started to say, do you have gas? I like the fluffy dog sign in the back. You like that, Dave? Brenda got me that. We found it somewhere, probably in Gatlinburg or someplace for sale. Do not pet the fluffy dogs. Yeah, if you spent time up here, Dave, in the Smokies, you know how sometimes how hard it is to get people to leave the bears alone. That is hot. Let's go back to the donut question a minute, Mike. I want everybody to know that I did. I actually got out this morning and thought I'd go see if I could find some halfway decent donuts, and came home empty-handed and disappointed again. There just aren't any, and I thought the grocery store here in town might. They've got a bakery area, but I know they do a lot of pre-prepared baked goods and stuff. I know that. I mean, they get them from the main base, and then they just bake them and ice them and do that. But they didn't have anything. Their donut rack, yeah, I'm sure, comes from somewhere else now, and they didn't. They weren't. It was mostly empty, and they didn't look very fresh. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. No, I don't know if they do either, Dave, but I wouldn't be surprised if like one of these days you won't see one there digging through the trash can or something. As long as they keep the trash picked up and they don't have a garbage disposal site out back that would attract the bears, they're probably okay there. but there certainly are bears around there. They just they just may not be at Dollywood because they're all over the place. I mean, that county and those several surrounding counties on both sides of the state line have lots of bears. And there's kind of an interesting phenomena happens if the mast crop, and mast M-A-S-T, that's a food source, things like berries and nuts, if they fail, or if there's a bad season, like we have a late frost or something that kills, say, all the acorn blossoms, um, and there's quite a few bears like in the park, but there'll be a big migration outside the park. The bears will all come into town and places looking for something to eat, and usually you can tell that that's a mast crop failure year because of that. Or if you already know that, they kind of can plan for it. But oaks are funny like that. They think that some people, at least, think that that was one of the reasons why the American chestnut, was so important to wildlife, is because that didn't happen. They bloomed late, so late in the year that frost never got them. Oaks bloom earlier, and sometimes if there's a late, just even a little bit of a late frost, it'll catch the oak while they're in flower and kill the blooms, and which in turn kills the nut, and you don't have anything. And you end up with a failed mass crop, and you end up with a lot of hungry bears looking for some place to go grab a, going through the drive-through, to get dinner. But when the chestnuts were here, they don't think that happened. They think that's one of the reasons wildlife populations were so low in the early half of the last century, because they were recovering from that loss of that steady food source, which makes sense. I mean, they got hunted, and a lot of them got overhunted, but they just all disappeared. Turkey, well, didn't completely disappear, obviously, because we were able to recover. But sorry, I broke a fingernail. I'm trying to fix it, and close enough. Anyway, when the chestnuts went away, then critters didn't have anything to eat. Well, so they went to town looking for it, or they moved on, or they didn't have youngins, because animals tend to not, they don't have. If there's a food shortage, they tend to not breed and or they delay pregnancy. Bears can delay pregnancy if bears can carry all the makings for a new baby, if you will, new bear cubs inside. And if the mass crop fails, or if there's, at the end of the year, if they're starving and they go into their tree without eating a lot, they can delay that birth and not have it till next season, which is kind of really cool if you think about it. Oh, Maple Bacon's trying to buy something. You got to tell us about it, buddy. I think I bought something last night, and I'm hoping it turns out to be something good. Well, the girls had an auction, and I bought some books. That shouldn't surprise anybody. I might have told this last week, but they had a book in there, a leather-bound book. It was written by Leonardo da Vinci. This one wasn't an original, but it was printed in 1746, which I thought was still pretty cool. And if I could have read it, I might have bid on it, but I couldn't read it. It was in a language foreign to my eyes. I suspect it was Latin, I think. I guess it could have been Italian, but I don't know. At that time, I'm not sure what I think they wrote in Latin in Italy, but I'm not positive. Well, now, Tina, that's not what I meant. I bought something I like, and I got a really good price on it. And after I got to investigating it more, it may turn out that it was actually as they like to say on certain TV shows, a thing of value. It may turn out that it's actually worth something more than I thought. So, and I'm saying I'll know because I'll have to do a little bit of once I get it in my hands. I'll have to do a little investigation, checking signatures and numbers and things like that. But if it turns out to be what I think it is, then it's worth a lot more than I paid for it. So that's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I got something I wanted in that respect. It is good, but it's uh, well, the girls aren't listening anyway, so I can probably talk about it. It's a piece of art, a lithograph, but it was a limited edition lithograph. It's signed and numbered, and I looked them up online, and I can't find any of them that don't any examples of it that don't bring way more money than what I paid. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, it might just be a copy, and it could just be a copy. But it's got all the other things. It's got the numbers. It's got the signatures. It's the right size. It's the right. It's in framed in a professional frame. So it's got all the hallmarks of being the real thing. We'll see. And when I find out, I'll let you know. Yeah, it would be funny if they did, but I doubt it. But I don't give away any secrets. But they'll probably look at me and say, "You're stupid, Dad. We would know that if we had." But this was sort of a sleeper thing. I didn't think it was extremely valuable, and it may not be, but I think it is. At least I think there's a good chance it is. They fetched pretty good money on that Leonardo da Vinci book, considering I would say considering its age, but that's what makes it valuable. But it was a leather bound book, and the leather was cracking pretty bad on, especially on the back. So, yeah, hello, ladies. I hope there are. If they are, they need to come in here and say hi. Actually, I suspect that this morning, and I can verify this. I think this morning they're probably working. They usually the pickup for the sale is the day after the sale ends, and the sale ended last night. So I'm thinking um, that they're busy giving out stuff that was people bought. Um, they usually try to do that the weekend immediately after the sale ends. That way people can get their stuff and they have to clear out so they can do the next group of things next show. It's still up, but it's not everything's the prices aren't showing. They had a little deal on a camera. I really got thought about buying get well considered. Not because it was any great stretch, it's just that it wasn't very expensive, and I've been wanting to get I don't know, some kind of a cheap DSLR or not necessarily a high dollar one just to play around with it some and then think about getting a better one. And they had one. They had one in this sale and I just didn't chase after it. The price looked pretty good though. I looked at those online too and they were selling for quite a bit more than I think they ended up getting for it. So if you went to a camera store and bought it, they were 3 or 4 times what I think they probably realized on it. Maybe. I didn't see the final price, so if you guys have ever bid on anything on eBay or anywhere else, you know that people wait till the last minute and then they try to get the best deal by jumping on it right at the end, and that don't always work anymore because most auction places run a schedule. If you bid within so many minutes of the end of they recycle it and start again and put 5 more minutes on it or something so more people can look at it. In case you outbid somebody, then they can have a chance to outbid you back. What kind of camera? It was a Nikon. It was just a less expensive kit camera that they sell, like you can get off Amazon. It was a 3200, which is not anywhere near top of their line, but it was still a pretty good little camera. From what I've read, it was actually one of the better ones in that price category. I'm eyeballing the DJI Rocky 4 when it comes out, but I may end up buying the 3 if the sales go deep enough. I know DJI. I've got a couple of DJI products. You talking about is that a oh a video camera set up all in one, or is it a yeah, the ones that aren't mirrorless? Yeah, the mirrorless ones do tend to cost more. That's okay, Rhonda. I'll figure it out. I can't type either, so it means I can probably read whatever you type. I was just trying to figure out what model it was. I think my gimbal's a DJI. I think I'd have to get it out. Actually, it's laying right behind me, but can't reach it. I was looking at or at one time I thought about getting a Canon. I think it's 500 mirrorless, which is probably I know a lot of people that stream with those, but I've never used one, so yeah, all on one thing. That's what I thought it was. I've seen people using those, and those look very handy to me. And I think they've gotten. I'm going to say the word better, but what I really mean is I think you can live stream with them now and stuff. When they first came out, they were mostly to record, do vlogging with. But I think now you can live stream with them. Insta's coming out with the Luna to compete though, so it all depends on pricing. Now Insta also sells the 360 cameras. I see a lot of those now too. I think DJI makes one and Luna makes one, or Insta makes one, excuse me. And I've seen both being used by streamers like motorcycle travelers and airplane people use them a lot now. And I've seen both of those cameras used, so they both seem to work pretty good. Oh, you have an Insta 360, okay. So you like it? I mean, I don't know anything bad about them. I've heard, most people I know seem to like them if they've got them. Yeah, that's my problem, Ron. I don't have 360 editing. I just need to learn how to edit better. I've not worked on it enough. I need to. Oh, let's see, guys. I'm gonna walk through this show I put together, and because I don't want to not do it, and the and da 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 da. Let's see here what I need to do. Yeah. Oh, how did I do this before? Like this. I need to be able to see the chat. Now I can see it. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about rodents. Now I know that may sound like a terrible subject, but they're actually a fascinating group of mammals that are quite large in that rodents take up about and then as an individual group, about 45% of the animal kingdom, basically, of all mammals. That's and quite a few now. I know sooner or later some of you are thinking he's going to start talking about rats and mice, and I'm not yet, and I didn't mean to do that. So hang on, let me fix that. Gave you the wrong screen, of course, because that's what I do. Only I remember. Do, 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 do. And okay. Nope. Well, I goofed up. I guess I'll just have to do without it. You better start all over again. Let's start all over again. No, no, don't do that. If I do it this way, I think I can get it fixed. Now, I think this time I got it right. And I'm stopping up, guys, and I apologize for that. I'm not going to be able to talk here in a minute. My nose is going to be too stopped up. So, let's talk a little bit more about rodents. But we're not going to talk about rats or mice. I promise. But we're going to talk about some more squirrels, but not the ones that we've talked about in the past. And last week we talked about chipmunks. And chipmunks, while I think are fascinating, aren't the only things. There's another group of ground squirrels that we're going to talk a little bit more about today. And now this will be fairly quick. And they're just called the ground squirrels, but they're generally larger than chipmunks. They have some other things that make them different. Dentition. They all have those canine. They all have those incisors, top and bottom, that grow. That's part of what makes them a rodent. But they live slightly different locations, but they're ground dwellers. Mostly, they probably get up in a tree once in a while, but rarely. Mostly, they burrow. So let's get along with that show and see what we got here. All the usual housework. Please hit the like button if you don't mind. Subscribe if you're not already, and leave a comment. So, ground squirrels. Ground squirrels are rodents of the squirrel family. So, we're still talking about Sciuridae, but they generally live on the ground or in burrows rather than in trees, like the tree squirrels, which makes sense. The term is most often used for the medium-sized ground squirrels, as the larger ones are more commonly known as marmots, groundhogs, woodchucks, whistle pigs, depending on where you're from, or prairie dogs. And prairie dogs are kind of a separate group amongst themselves. There's not that many prairie dogs. While the smaller and less bushy-tailed ground squirrels tend to be known as chipmunks, and we already talked about those some. So these guys have bushier tails, tend to, or at least different kinds of tails, and they're marked very differently, and they're larger than chipmunks. So together they make up the marmot tribe of squirrels, which are the marmotini, which is a clade within the large and mainly ground squirrel subfamily. And there are 6 living genera. I won't say it. Well-known members of this largely Arctic. I can't even speak at all today. It's worse than usual. Group are their marmots, which we've talked about, the American groundhog, um, the Sussex, which are a group of the middle-sized ground squirrels we're going to talk about today, and prairie dogs, which are cynomies. And they vary in size and shape from what we've looked at before, anywhere from 8 kilograms up to 18 pounds, which are bigger like groundhogs are. Let's see if I got any other details here. I don't think so. I think I covered it pretty much. Like I said, we've already talked about chipmunks. So even though they're within the larger part of this group, we're not going to talk about them today. So we're going to talk about ground squirrels. And the first one I thought was this guy, and I found this picture of Audubon. And I read something. Well, I've got it written down here. So late in life, naturalist John James Audubon made a final expedition to the western plains of the United States in search of four-footed mammals. He's most famous for all of his bird drawings, but he did a lot of other stuff. You have one of these. Yeah, spring's definitely hit the south. May back up and catch on chat real quick. I've got a feeling that there was some discussion about rats and such. And rats are much cleaner and much sweeter than people think. Not that I have any, but Tina says they saw their chipmunk this week, and Carol, they're trying to discuss what is and what isn't a squirrel this week. You have the groundhog. Oh, cool, okay. So this guy is known as the 13-line ground squirrel, and like I said, later in life, Audubon took one last expedition into the West, and he drew mammals, these guys, instead of birds. He'd already done the birds and some other stuff, and he wanted to go back out one more time, and these are the kind of critters he was drawing. And this one is a funny-looking guy to me, and he's known as the 13-line ground squirrel. And that's what John James Audubon said they look like, and this is what they look like in reality. So very much what he had. I just think this is the funniest looking animal. I've chased some squirrels in my life, and I've seen a lot of groundhogs and chipmunks, and even some prairie dogs and things out in the wild. I've never seen one of these. And the coloration and the stripes and the dots, I think make it look so strange. You can see I don't know if you can tell, but it's probably twice the size roughly of most chipmunks, maybe a little bigger. And it's got that tail that's more like a fuller bottle brush or something. It's different shape and size. And this particular version of a ground squirrel lives in all that orange area. Let's see if I can get this in the right place today. All this area here that's in what I'm going to call orange, burnt orange, or I don't know, what would you, brick red? I don't know what to call that. Anyway, they're in that area of the United States. So all the way up from South Texas, the Gulf Coast area of Texas, all the way up into Canada. So Mike and Diana, you guys could have these too. But I've never seen one in the wild. I can't believe I've never driven past one. Well, maybe I didn't see it, but never picked up a dead one. You'd think I'd have seen one somewhere by now. Then we're going to talk about, there's two what they call Arctic ground squirrels that are native to North America, and I don't see my map, so I guess I didn't put it in here. But they range all the way up into the tundra area of Alaska. They even jump over the coast of the Bering Strait and connect into Siberia. So, which tells me they probably were, one big unit when things were connected and the water wasn't up that high. And but this is one of them, and this happens to be up in Alaska. And we've also got a group called the antelope squirrels, and I'm going to mention that again because there's several different subspecies that pop up. Um, but these guys are mostly desert dwellers, and they like to high and the dry or low and dry. And they burrow. They're another burrowing critter, but they don't live in large. They're not like they burrow like a prairie dog, but they don't live in large community groups like prairie dogs. I mean, you could go. There was a time you can still see this in a few places, but there used to be prairie dog towns out west that had thousands of animals in them and holes everywhere. And you don't see that anymore much. You see some, but not much. But these guys don't do that. This will be individual holes, kind of like a groundhog. We have groundhogs, and there might be 10 groundhogs within a 5 mile radius of this, or 5 acre radius of this house, but they don't live together. They have their own burrows and they live separately. They're not that gregarious. And these guys are like that. Antelope squirrels or antelope ground squirrels of this genus. Um, they tend to be desert and dry scrub areas, southwestern United States, northern Mexico. They're a type of ground squirrel and are able to resist hypothermia and can survive body temperatures over 40 C or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're pretty hardy. Although I could see the weather in some places in the country now is surpassing 104. So let's see what that does to them. They tend to have one white stripe along the lateral on their sides from the shoulder back to their hip, similar to chipmunks, but not quite. Unlike chipmunks, the white stripes do not extend into the head of the animals, which chipmunks go all the way up to the nose usually. The tails tend to arch their tails over their back, much like a tree squirrel does. But the tail, as you can see, is not near as bushy as a tree squirrel. You can see this guy's right here. And this one right here, he's holding it up into a question mark. This one's laying down flat on its back, but it's over its back. Chipmunks tend to trail behind them like a tail. Um, burrowing critters like mammals like these guys don't just create burrows that they use. There's lots of animals use their burrows. Rabbits, other squirrels, snakes, um, burrowing owls sometimes will move into these burrows if they're abandoned by the squirrels. Now let me catch up. But we have cats, so that's probably why. What's? Oh, if you're talking about chipmunks, yes, cats will do that. Carol, I had no idea what we had all these animals till my brother. Yeah, Carol, Kay has had some interesting animals at her back door lately. I've seen a couple of pictures. Carol says we see groundhogs fairly often in the spring. Yeah, you guys. There used to be more groundhogs, seems like, in the Midwest than there were down this way for a long time. And I think it was because they'd been cleared out down here more. But now there seem to be more of them, and they've come back, and they're not hunted and removed, I guess, like they once were. I don't think they are anyway. Some people, some people still consider them varmints, but what's a varmint to me is probably not to you. So anyway, that's another type. Well, I mentioned some others that are variations of this. Oh, and there's an example, a couple examples of that white stripe since I brought that up. This guy down here in the middle, this one, you can see his stripe starts on his hip, but it stops on his shoulder. It doesn't go all the way up to his face. Same thing with the one up here at the top picture. And the chipmunks would go all, their stripes would go all the way up their face, and in sometimes two or three stripes that terminate on their face. We got a California ground squirrel. I think this guy's neat because he lives on the beach. As you can see this picture, the lower left, right here, this one. Um, he's got a mouthful of grass or something, but he's living on the coast, and that picture was taken in, I think, at Ray's Point, which is just north of San Francisco. I think Brenda's been in at Ray's Point, or there's a park or a monument there called Ray's Point National. It may be a monument, or it may just be a habitat area. But anyway, I think that's where that one's living, and the others you can see the green stripe here on the on this map, and it runs all up pretty much from Baja California all the way up into maybe touching into Washington just a little bit. But I thought that's kind of neat that they go all the way up and but they live near the coast, and there's two or three of them that do. I didn't realize that these squirrels actually got that close to the ocean as they do, but it's kind of neat that they do. We got a Douglas ground squirrel, and if you look closely, this guy's spotted, and they share some of the same habitat. They look similar to this guy. If you check out the spots, you can see all how dappled they are or dotted. And this one is very similar, but the pattern's different, and they tend to be more of a saddle on their back, not all the way up and down, not all the way from shoulder to hips, I don't think. And that lower left picture, this one right here is the picture says it's two males fighting, so probably over territory and or females, because that's what guys fight about. And this one's sitting there like any other squirrel. It's got a mouthful of seeds or whatever it's eating. So this one. So some things never change, I guess. We got a Franklin's ground squirrel. Again, you can see he's got a fluffy tail. He's sitting there looking like a beaver. He's got spots, but they're not nearly as predominant as they were on the previous two. And he's pretty much a northern squirrel. You can see he's in the northern central plains all the way up into Canada. Looks like they go all the way out maybe to Calgary and that area of Alberta. And it could be someplace where Mike could see them in Manitoba. Now we get to this golden mantle ground squirrel, and I'm not so sure that I didn't have a picture of this guy last week accidentally mixed in. But again, you can look at the stripe. This stripe right here, for example, stops on his shoulder. It doesn't go all the way up to his head. His head's an entirely different group of colors. And I love this one in the middle. I mean, that's not a... That looks like the squirrel they used to draw Chip and Dale, because that looks like a Chip and Dale expression to me. And this guy's sitting there kind of like a, like a chipmunk. But these are bigger. These guys are half again to twice as big as a chipmunk in this case. And you can see where their territory is. It's quite a bit of the western United States. Not all the states, but quite a bit. And again, up into Canada, along the front range of the Rocky Mountains. The further north you get, cold weather and altitude probably drives them down up there a little bit more towards the plains. I'm thinking. We got a Harris's antelope squirrel. Again, it looks much like these other guys, but it's got a bush. Look at the bushy tail over its back, and then you just have to pick out the individual stripes, and I think they got different ears too. At least this one does. And this is a southern squirrel, Arizona, parts of Mexico, maybe New Mexico, maybe a little bit of California, but not much, I don't think. Maybe Baja California. We got a Richardson's ground squirrel. I don't know where I got Harrison's. Richardson's. Now look at the back, and the coloration on this guy is pretty dull and plain. It looks more like this guy looks more like a gopher or prairie dog to me. I mean, it has less markings. This skull is actually a fossil. I think is it Pleistocene? Maybe I didn't put it in there. I guess I didn't. I like that picture of the one in this guy over here in the lower right because he's letting somebody know that that's close enough. Good morning, Michelle. Good to see you. How's things in your part of California? We were just talking about California, or I was anyway. So, but yeah, this guy looks more like a prairie dog, except again, they don't live in the colonies like prairie dogs. They don't. I don't know if they set up and bark at each other like prairie dogs do. And by looking at the map up here, you can see that they're primarily Canadian and upper tier of the United States, probably Montana, North Dakota, a little bit, maybe down to South Dakota, maybe into Minnesota, but mostly Canadian. That's like a little bit of Winnipeg, not Winnipeg, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Looks to me like my geography may be off there. Oh yeah, you got a new puppy. I meant to write you about your puppy. I had a good friend of mine had a chocolate lab years ago. Man, that was a good dog. That dog that dog would go down and meet the UPS guy and bring the UPS packages up to the top of the porch to my buddy Joe. If he could carry them, and he could carry quite a bit. He was a pretty big dog. Not all chocolates get that big, but he had a big one. So anyway, that's a Richardson's. And we got just what people in the western United States just call a rock squirrel. Again, it's very similar to the other ones. Bigger ears on these guys, not the little chopped off ears like some of them had. Let's see if I got anything special about them. Native to Mexico and the southwestern United States, southern Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, and the panhandle of Oklahoma. But he's a lot bigger. I mean, I realize there's not much there for scale, but that guy on the top is probably, I'm going to guess that he's half the size of what we'd have considered a normal groundhog in this part of the country. We got a round-tailed ground squirrel, and you can kind of, if you look real close right here, you can kind of see where he got his name. He's got a furry tail all the way out, but it's just, round tail. It's not bushy. And they're burrowing again by themselves. They live in the desert areas. And again, if you look at the map, Southern California, Arizona, parts of Nevada, into Mexico. Let's see if there's anything cool about him. I can't speak Spanish. There's a Spanish name for him. But they tend to burrow in loose soil under trees, mesquite trees, and creosote bushes. And if you've ever spent any time in the desert in the Southwest, you'll know that there's not a lot of tall trees. There's a lot of short, scrubby stuff in some areas, and you usually run into either mesquite trees, which is like a cedar. In fact, our eastern red cedars are very close to mesquite trees to me, or creosote bushes, which are I'm pretty sure they're succulents. But they've got thick leaves and they smell just like creosote. If you've ever smelled, well, I'm not hung around too many railroad ties in my walked too many railroads in my life, but they smell like railroad ties to me. And that's what they put on railroad ties, that black looking tar. It's creosote. Well, that's what these bushes smell like. And bad thing about creosote bushes is, and this type of bushes, when they dry out, they're very oily. And when they dry out in drought periods, they get dry, but they also the oil in them tends to collect or get more concentrated. So if you get a brush fire, it tends to be a really hot brush fire. Oh, that's right. You named him Kahlua. Yeah, I kind of like Kahlua once in a while in my coffee. That's probably a different kind of, huh? Did I already do that? I already did that guy. So then we got a Texas antelope squirrel. Pretty much the same kind of critter, but I really like that picture at the top. I'm not sure if that's an antelope squirrel, but that is in Texas, and that's an Aggie campus. They were monitoring squirrels. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that little guy's got a radio collar on, which is why I put him in there. And that's pretty much it for the big ground squirrel. So I thought I'd add another fellow in here, much maligned, and that is our North American porcupine. And if you look real close there, you can see that the porcupine gets around. That even shows them being down in my part of Tennessee. So I guess I need to look out for them. But I've never seen one down here. Never heard of anybody seeing one down here. But they certainly do get. I know they're north of us, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I know's got them. Not as many though as once you get further north along the border area. And I know with northern Michigan, and at least I know the UP in Michigan, probably the Mitten too. Probably once you get away from civilization a little bit, it's probably got more than plenty of them. Well, I'll tell you an example. If you've watched Dr. Pole on TV, you've seen him pull porcupine quills off a lot of dogs' mouths, and this is the culprit right here. But they tend to be an arboreal rodent. Uh, you see them up in trees a lot. They like to get in the very top of trees. And if you listen sometimes if you're in the woods or you're hunting or if it's snowing or if it's quiet, sometimes you can hear the chewing. And if you look up in the tree and you'll see a porcupine up in the top of the tree eating the top of the bark and stuff around the top of the tree. John Backer, you haven't left yet. I guess you haven't had it out for your hockey game yet. So you can see those guys. Dang it, are pretty widespread in the country. I don't know what this one's eating. Tried to look it up and see what he was eating. I'm not sure what it is. They will eat other things besides just the bark off trees. Or actually, what they're looking for is they're chewing the outer bark off, but they're eating the inner layer of bark, the cambium layer, which is a lot sweeter, tends to have more of the sap and stuff in it. Bark tends to be kind of dry and yucky. Let's see if I got anything special about him. We know that there are African porcupines. I think there's European also, but I'm not sure where all they're at. And here's one up in a tree. This is what you would see. Mark sees them like this in his yard occasionally. They're just, up there kind of hiding out, doing their own thing. They're up there eating, chewing on something, killing your trees in some cases. And here's two more. That's what it looks like when they've been chewing. If you find a place that looks like this on your tree, then you can start thinking about a porcupine. And I don't know if you remember what it looked like when the beaver chews a tree. It's usually big chunks. If you look real close, you can see that the porky's teeth are a little bit different, and they're scraping that inner bark off. That's all they're doing. Well, once they get the outer bark peeled away. According to the book that I got this picture out of, these two porcupines are probably about to do the mating ritual. And for some reason, thought it was important to point out that normally when you find two like this, that's what's going on. And the female is almost always the one that's on top up here. So I'm not sure if she's up there to defend her honor or if she's trying to get a better view of their suitors or what. And you can tell the difference. That if that's a female, she's a fair bit smaller than this big guy down here. It's also kind of interesting if you've ever seen an African porcupine. You know that their quills tend to stand up more and they tend to be longer. Yeah, I hope you had. We should be good on permission slips. I hope so. I forgot to ask. And but on that guy, they're laying down, and they're flat, and they don't tend to put them up except when they really are alarmed. And no, they do not shoot quills. They do not shoot quills. They shake them, and they can make them make a rattling noise, and they'll certainly stick them in you if you get too close, and they can flap that tail around and get you, but they don't shoot them. And that's been a long time rumored that porcupines can shoot their quills. They can't. That's just not how it works. And quills are nothing more than a a specialized hair follicle, basically. Or you've heard the rattle, Tina? Yeah, the rattle's interesting. I've only heard it once or twice, and probably in a zoo. But because I don't think I've ever jumped one in the wild where it, was startled. I think when we were in Minnesota, I did see a couple up in a tree. And when I've been out at Mark's, like I said, he finds them in their trees all the time, but I don't think there was any out there when I was there. Another interesting thing, mountain lions. And this is an interesting thing about dogs getting porcupine quills in their mouths, because dogs are stupid sometimes and they just grab. But mountain lions eat these things all the time, and they have developed a technique or evolved into a way where they flip them over, and of course eat them from the bottom side first, and that's how they attack and get them without being stuck full of quills. So that was a short one, and that's the end. As you can see, that's the end of a porky right there. And this doesn't belong, the next thing, so I don't want to pull that slide up. But anyway, that's the end of that. And I want to talk a little bit more about what we're going to do next week. Let me close this out. Or try to. Yeah, like that. Again, today at 1 or 1:30, somewhere in that neighborhood, yes, they eat porcupines. Yes, they do, Michelle, and they've learned how to eat them. I think bobcats and lynx probably eat them also. They've learned how to flip them over and eat them from the bottom side. If you've ever heard of a fisher is a mink-like animal that's larger than a mink, and they're also a boreal, and they tend to be north of us. Although there used to be fisher in this area, and I think they're trying to reintroduce them down here, but I'm not sure how well that's gone yet. But fishers primarily hunt on porcupines in the north, and again, they've learned how to flip them over on their back basically, and kill them and eat them without getting a mouthful of quills, which is, I think, fascinating because, we've talked about it. The quills on a porcupine, once they're in an animal or in us, the quills tend to, if they break off in there, they migrate through the skin and through your blood vessels, and they can climb all the way up into your eyeball and come out front of your head. I mean, they're seriously dangerous once you get one in you. So to learn how to eat them, learn how to kill them and eat them without getting a face full of quills, I think is pretty neat. New fear unlocked. Oh no! What? Wait a minute now. What fear? Because they're going to eat porcupines? You don't have a porcupine. Um, yes, Rhonda posted it there. I encourage everybody to go watch her show with the about the Iditarod. I was going to, if you don't know what the Iditarod's all about, and most people have heard about it, the races they do it today is not entirely the original route. And while the route is famous for I think it's 1925. I think it's 1925 cholera epidemic that happened in Nome, which is a very isolated part of the world. If you've ever been up that way or know, once it freezes in, you can't get in or out unless it's by sled dog. And according to what I've read, sleds and sled dogs were used all winter long to take supplies in Nome and other villages in that area, as well as firewood. They would bring in firewood when they needed it and stuff. I'm surprised you didn't do the show about the time change. Oh, I haven't done about time change. I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about time change or not. I've never made up my mind which which time I like best. The one coming up, I used to like. I used to prefer I could have done that today. You're right. I used to prefer daylight savings time because it doesn't get dark as early. When I was younger, that was important because could get more done. But I don't know anymore. I guess I'm like everybody else. Though. I'm kind of tired of changing back and forth. It's funny how some countries and some parts of this country don't seem to care, and other parts do care, and how some countries just embrace it and keep doing it. I mean, it's not like it just happens here. But it's also interesting. I think there's 20. I did do a little bit of research, Tina. I think there's 29 states right now that have pending state legislation where they're going to vote on whether to keep doing it or not and which way they're going to go. Because some states that have stopped changing time, some states have done daylight savings time, and some states are doing old time. I mean, it's all made up anyway, so I'm not sure which one's old and which one's new. I don't know. It's just different. And some countries change more than twice a year. That would really be a pain. Pardon me, guys. I can't breathe. I think I'm going to give Teddy a haircut and see if that helps my allergies. Hang on just a minute. Okay, I'm back. Tina hates the whole time change. Just leave it alone. Well, I don't. I never worried about it much. I mean, I've done it my whole life, and I never gave it a moment's thought other than when I had to do it and when I didn't. Except that, like I said, I always preferred the daylight savings because it stayed daylight longer. Uh, I don't know. I don't know which one today. I don't know which one because I would. Part of me started to say normal time or real time, but I mean, there's no. The whole thing's been made up since last century, last 2 centuries, mostly. At least as far as time zones and all that kind of stuff have came about. Maybe I'll talk about that some. Maybe I'll put that in next week too. But we got another hour in the bar. I liked it because in the summertime I could stay outside. I could ride my bike longer before it got dark. I mean, most people would rather ride in the daylight than the dark. And there was just so many other things going on that we could do in the evenings. Even and after work, I could come home and do things that I couldn't do, once it got dark. And so I liked it better that way. Today, sometimes I think I like the other time better. I don't know. I'm not sure which one I think if we ever decide not to change it, I'll be fine either way. So, but I know Tina doesn't like it. I know a lot of people that don't like it. I've never heard that, Tina, about the so-called Indian saying. I wonder about that. I suppose it could be. Leave it to the white man to invent the whole concept of time to begin with. It comes in handy for a lot of things, but it's also kind of a pain in the butt. That's what that's what this watch was all about. This was a railroad watch, and it was built specifically for railroad conductors to carry on board trains. And the whole idea of the time zones and the time stuff had a lot to do with railroad schedules, so that they weren't running into one another, and the standardization of times so they weren't running into each other on the tracks and whatnot. I suspect that soon we won't be changing. I don't know which way they'll go, but I suspect that there's enough people talking about it now, and there's enough people wanting it changed to stop doing it. Okay, Tina, we get your point. Yeah, I mean, time is necessary. I mean, we've made it necessary, but yeah, I get it. I don't have a problem with that. Uh, the changing it part, I think they had a good reason for it originally. I think I know people, farmers and stuff, liked it when they changed it at one time or another. Now that's not such a big deal either. So maybe it's outlived its usefulness, which makes me think they will take it back to the standard time. But most people prefer daylight savings time. So I don't know. We'll have to take. Maybe I should set up a poll. We'll take a vote, and we can tell them which way they ought to go. But I do suspect that it's on its way out. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year or when, but I suspect in the next couple of years it'll probably happen. Like I said, it's already up for voting. I think 29 states. So, and some states already don't do it. So they've picked their time. And then some states have even gotten it down to where the counties decide. That's dumb. No, that's really dumb. I can remember, like I said, I talked about it last week, but I remember going to Indiana and people that lived there telling me that it was terrible because the county they lived in was one way, the town they worked in was another way, and they had to swap. They were going between the two time zones every day, twice a day, and it really screwed up their whole. I could see why that would work. I mean, why that would mess you up. Okay, I'll stop harping. All I know is that the dogs get awful confused and we don't. Cats do too, Tina, and that's a good point. They don't. Our cats always have to figure that out too when we change their feeding time, when we've got them on a pretty regular schedule. So dogs don't get it. So maybe that should tell us something. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it, Rhonda. Maybe our cats are still wanting it. Maybe they're still operating on the old time too. Yeah, I think so too, Michelle. I talked to that guy. I don't remember his name now, but it was when we would go to Friendship for the rendezvous or the national muzzleloading gatherings, and that one guy always stuck in my mind because he said he lived in a county that was one way, and you'd cross the county line or across the city limits, and in that town where his business was and where he worked was on the other another time. So he was constantly having to go back and forth. I think that would drive me crazy. I'd probably just pick one and stick with it. And and it'd probably have to be your work time because that's when you got to be to work at a certain time. You get off at a certain time, so you'd probably have to choose that time schedule. But then when you go home, your kids, if they go to school in the other county, then they're on a different time schedule. I mean, it's all messed up. But it was nuts because every time we'd go in up there, we'd have to figure out which. And the people in Indiana used to refer to it as they'd say, "Are you on regular time or Indiana slow time?" So I don't think they liked it much either. But and I think they've stopped doing all that foolishness now. But in fact, I don't even know if Indiana changes. They may be one of the states that doesn't change anymore, which has got to be a little confusing too to people when they. I mean, you could be within a time zone and still not be on the same time as. I don't know. I'm gonna let somebody else figure it out. But a couple of my old jobs were Pacific time, and I'd live in Eastern, so during work I lived Pacific. Once I got off work, it fast forwarded 3 hours. Does that give you jet lag every day, Rhonda? That would be. I know how that work. I know how that can happen, and I've talked to people that did that. I worked, remotely and had to do the time zone thing, but I would think that would be hard every day to get used to. My camera's crooked. I don't know if it shows up on your end or not, but it sure looks crooked to me. Yeah, you get used to it. Well, I guess you would, but still. Yeah, but you'd be. Oh, never mind. I'm not even going to go there. You are Pacific and come in to 100 email. Yeah, I bet that. I bet that does make a difference there too. And then you're also trying to get answers at night, and everybody's gone home on the other end. So yeah, you have to get up super. That's it, Michelle. You need to start getting up 3 hours earlier, and then coming home. Well, you'd have to stay with your regular time, so you'd end up putting in, 11-hour days, roughly. And I've worked some where people thought that's kind of how you ought to do it. I feel like I'm 3 hours late every morning, and I'm not a morning person. See that, but see what you're doing. You're having to. I mean, you're both of you are talking about altering your own personal schedule to try to keep up with it, and that's. I don't know how. I mean, one way or another, you're always going to be ahead or behind or something. It seems like I used to cross one time zone, and that was bad enough. When I was working my last job, we had people in Eastern and people in Central, and that was always when somebody'd call a meeting, and then we'd all get there an hour early, or everybody else would show up an hour late. I mean, you always had to be real specific about that. Hmm. Yeah, what's Thailand? Nearly 10 or 12 out in 10 hours or so from. See, they're ahead of us, right? I think. Or are they far enough? Okay. Would you say, let's just take a small example. Would you say the UK is 5 hours ahead of us or behind us? I guess they're ahead of us. I guess they are ahead. They're on that side. I'm trying. I'm trying to think too much into it now. What I was going to say, Rhonda, was: are you far enough ahead that you're behind, or are you far enough behind that you're starting to be ahead? I see what I mean about confusing myself. I probably shouldn't say any of that. I don't know if my spousal unit's been in here today or not. Has anybody seen Brenda? I need to call her because one, I want to be home for Rhonda's show, and two, I'd kind of like to go down to there's a little farmers market trading post. They call it a trading post thing, and here in town in Rogersville, at one of the older establishments that's historically been here for a long time, and one of the first grist mill and that kind of stuff was built there when the town was first founded, and they do what they call a trading post. It's sort of like a little mini flea market, I guess, in a way, but they set people come in and have homemade goods or eggs or jams and jellies or that kind of stuff. I'm sure in late summer they probably have fresh vegetables. And Brenda's talked about doing aprons and taking over and setting up a booth and doing that. And I thought about driving over there today just to see how many people showed up because today I think it's the first day of the year, first trading post of the year. Hey Dave, welcome back. Or maybe you've been here the whole time. I don't know. Let me see if I can pull that up and show it a little bit. Oh, that's not it. Here it is. Okay, so I'm gonna share this, or at least make every possible effort to do so. So this is what they call, and this is pronounced. People around here pronounce this both Amos and Ami. I mean, it depends on where you're from and who you are. I think I think technically it's the Ami family. They were some of the original settlers here, and that dam you see in the background of that photo was originally built to power water wheels, which ran grist mills in this area, and probably a sawmill too. And this is the area where they did. Oh, somebody's up there right now filming, or has been. Yeah, somebody been up on the. This is where they set it up on this flat area. There they are. Looky there. I was going to do that today. Can you guys hear that? Well, they say it's on me, Tina, but I don't know if the people that live there now are they're part of the family, but they're so far removed. I'm not sure they go by that name. But you do see the image, right? Oh my goodness, that all looks hot. Oh, that's all hot sauces, copper red, burn, twisted. So anyway, that's what it is, and I'm gonna try to get. I don't know. We may go over there and set up sometime. This is the flyer for this year. There's a show this weekend, and they skip next weekend, and they do it again on the 21st. I thought maybe if Brenda wanted to, we might try to go set up on the 21st. We've got a tent. She started doing some shows in Knoxville a few years ago where we'd take her tent and set it up, and she'd sell aprons and whatnot. And so, anyway, maybe. Yeah, this one seems to be more of the homemade stuff or homegrown stuff. Um, Rhonda, I couldn't think. Sorry. I've seen, and I think there's somewhere attached to one of these. Oh, there's something from that's old. That's used, obviously old. I mean, I know last year I've had pictures of them. There was a lot of fresh eggs. Somebody had turkey eggs and chicken eggs and duck eggs. They're not uncommon. There's also this eatery down there called the Me Mill Eatery, and we've never gone over there, but I've heard that the food's pretty tasty. That's one of their dishes. They got a porch outside to eat off of. Turns out that I'm related to these people, and this is the. If you can see this, we had a lot of rain last week, and this was the runoff on that dam area down there. It got kind of high and rough. This town was originally settled by the Rogers family, who were kin to David Crockett. And I believe that the gentleman that started this mill purchased the land from them to start it. I believe is how it worked. I'd have to go back and reread the history. And I've got a book about it somewhere around here that they gave me, a little one. Because it turns out that somehow or another I'm related to these people, which doesn't surprise me too much. My mom grew up in this county, and there's a lot of my people or her people in this county. I'll have to find that little book. It wasn't a very big book, so I stuck it in the middle of something else. Um, but they, when I was there talking to him, he said, "Well, I need to give you something." He gave me that little book, and the anyway, it's kind of a neat thing. We may or may not make it up there today. Um, Depends on if we, it just depends. But anyway, it's kind of fun. It's kind of a neat little place, and I'd like to see something like. I'd like to see them do. Uh, did I do that? Oh, I backed up over here. I'd like to see it grow because I think it's good to have stuff like that in the community, since it's all local produce and or I don't know, handmade goods to sell. I think that would be a good, cottage industry kind of thing to support the locals. Well, other than Rhonda's show, has anybody got anything else going on today that they'd like to mention before I did? I don't know if I ever said why Mark's not here. Maybe I did, but Mark's building a fence today. His fence got blown out again, and this time he said he's going to try to redesign it, so maybe it won't happen every spring. When the spring floods come, the river gets up, it blows his fence out, and that's tough because that's a hard thing to do. We used to have to build water gates like that when we were doing stream cleanup projects and stuff, and to get he's on a pretty big piece of water to have to put a water gate across. So I'm not too surprised he has trouble. He's going to try to drive two big posts in the ground, I think, on either side of the river and stretch a cable. This is the way it sounded. He was explaining something. He's going to try to put a cable across and connect his movable gates on that cable so they would pivot better and maybe wouldn't blow off every time the water came up. He's been trying to use posts in the river bottom and they just won't stay. Going to a Heart cover band tonight. Oh, cool. Is I take it that's somewhere near Atlanta. I was watching I guess Resort TV 1 last night, and I know This Our Dream is going to be there again tonight. That ABBA cover band that's playing Epcot this weekend for the Flower and Garden Show actually sounds pretty good. They look a lot like ABBA, whichever, and they sound like them. And some of the, if I read correctly, some of the band members that are there were actually with the original band. So that's kind of cool. Jeff's going to be there again tonight. Jeff, this our dream. Jeff, he's there already. He said he's going to stay all day so he could be there and get in line for the band. He said he really enjoyed it. I've always really liked Heart, so that'd be a fun concert to go to if they're good. I just saw, speaking of Heart, I just saw something online earlier today. I was showing Brenda, maybe last night, I was showing Brenda something, and I saw Nancy. Dave, maybe you can help me. What were the two sisters named? Nancy and I think Nancy. I can't think of her last name now. Was doing something with Pink. She's so I guess she's still making music. Ann, thank you, Carol Wilson, Ann and Nancy Wilson. That's it. And I didn't realize it. I did a show for a little while, a radio show with oh, I can't remember his name. Some of you guys would remember him or know him. He does radio. He has a Disney music on internet station now. I think it operates out of Florida. Um, I did a show for him for a little while for like an hour, and I did music history and music stuff, and I did a show about heart or guitar playing, and actually it was about female musicians and particularly drummers and guitarists at that time. And I talked about Nancy Wilson. I didn't realize that she was considered such a. I mean, I knew she played the guitar, and she was good, but I didn't realize she was as good as she apparently is or was. They She was considered one. She was several years in a row. I think she was voted like the #1 rock guitarist, or some. Maybe it was one of the guitar brands like Fender or not. It wasn't Fender. It was one of them though that had an annual awards thing, and she always ranked real high in it. Might have been Gibson actually. Anyway, I did a little story about her and her guitar prowess. She's really good. Turns out, I knew, like I said, I knew she played well. I didn't know she was as good as she was. Is. Oh, well, guys, I think I'm going to do something I rarely ever do, and that's cut this off early today instead of keeping everybody late. I think I'm going to shut down shop and do a couple of things before, and then try to be up and running where Rhonda's show comes on. And looking forward to that. So I hope you guys have a minute, stop by and see how it's going. And so, I can get ready for that, and you guys can get ready. You can do whatever, and I'll see you all next week. And I'll probably do my, um, I did a run history show next week just because, and since the race will still be going strong at that time, it'll still be appropriate. So they usually last about 13 days, 14 days, a couple of weeks. Used to last even longer than that. These mushers now are that's just all they do, and their dog teams are excellent, and they're in great physical shape. And anyway, look into it. It's pretty neat. So anyway, everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Whatever you're getting into today, be safe and have a good time. And I'll look forward to seeing everybody again next week. So bye bye. Now I'll sit here and do like somebody else says, and I'll be silly and I'll wave until the stream's